I'm Ratko Djukanovic, Professor of Medicine at Southampton University and the clinical co-chair of the Severe Asthma SHARP CRC.
And I'm Dominique Hammerlink. I am a patient expert and I am the patient co-chair for the SHARP CRC. Ratko, why did you start the SHARP CRC as a patient-centered project and wanted a patient co-chair in the first place?
I've been engaged in clinical research for the past 30 years, Dominique, and I've always been very interested to know what patients think, what engages them in a project which takes their time, comes with inconvenience. And so I've always been keen to really understand what is going on in the patient's mind. And so when the opportunity came to apply for a big clinical research collaboration, I thought, well, why do I need to keep going back to the patient time and again to ask them what they think? Why don't I have somebody there with me all the time who makes the decisions with me? And that is the simple reason why I thought wouldn't it be brilliant to have a patient actually at the very, very top of this clinical research collaboration. When you were approached, what to join the SHARP CRC, what was your reaction to that initiative? How did you think about it?
Well, it's sort of interesting because my first reaction was it was the European Lung Foundation that sent out the sort of, we have a new CRC and we would like a patient engagement group and we would like patient co-chairs. And at the first or patient co-chair, and my first thought was, when we have one, we need two, because you need to have severe asthma patients. So I wrote to the ELF and they immediately said, that's fine, we'll go with two. So that gave me a really good feeling. And one of the projects I was engaged with before was UBioPred, which you were a part of as well. And what I liked about UBioPred was that from the very beginning, we as patients were really listened to, and we had an impact on the project development and what was done and what was not done with patients. And we were not as engaged as I'm now in SHARP, but for me, it's still one of the best examples of having continued engagement of patients, even if we had problems. And I was thinking about SHARP and I was just going to apply for the PAG. And then I thought, yes, but I have quite a lot of project experience in my own work, and felt I want to be involved in the next step. I want to be involved in a project where patients are co-chairs and see how we can develop this project. So I was really, really looking forward to doing this. And we have been working together for 3 years now.
Yeah, just slightly over 3 years, yes.
Yeah. How do you think it has worked so far?
Well, I may sound a bit biased, but I think it has worked superbly. And not just because of not just because of yourself and the person that you are. You're a delight to work with. But I think the whole concept of having patients centrally involved has been tremendously successful. And it's not only I who say this, it's everybody. As you know, we have 4 stakeholder groups in SHARP. We've got the patient group, we've got the clinical leads from the 27 European countries with their registries. We've got scientists, and we've got colleagues from the pharmaceutical industry. And from all of these stakeholder groups, I've heard a very simple and strong message that they're absolutely thrilled to have patients involved, because that is what adds a completely different dimension that, quite frankly, we haven't been used to before. Pharmaceutical companies have always said, not just to me, but it's very much a sentiment shared across the whole industry that they would love to know what goes in the patient's mind, and they always have us, between, and they want to kind of remove us. They want to talk directly to the patients. So that I think is the sort of the biggest impression that I come from in this clinical research collaboration. But of course, there are challenges. Any kind of big collaboration comes with challenges. So I was just wondering what you thought were what you perceived as the big challenges, and in particular in relation to how patients engage.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think I think the main challenges in patient engagement weren't that different from engaging our other stakeholder groups, right? Involving the people working for pharma, the scientists, the national leads, is throughout the development of the project, we had problems in getting or keeping people engaged, and we looked for solutions, which we found, and this is how we drove the project forward, and it helped with the patients, and it helped with all the other stakeholders as well. And I think the way we set up the project, when we needed, by example, developing the research questions, interacted with the different stakeholder groups separately, and then brought everybody together, worked really, really well, because everybody knew they were heard. And then in meetings, especially in the face-to-face meetings, everybody was at the table. And what really helped, I remember our second face-to-face meeting, where patients were at the table, and I saw the national leads and the pharma people and the scientists and us as chairs, and everybody listening to the patients there. And there were so many people who came to me and to other patients and said, it was great to hear from you, because you saw their perspective changing. And I think that had a fundamental impact on how SHARP was developed. There was that people, we all listened to each other and came together and made joint decisions. And that, I think that having a patient co-chair and having the patient engagement and the engagement of everybody organized in this way worked really, really well.
Yes, I agree with that. I found the patient's perspective added what really bothers the patient intimately, and because we as clinicians inevitably, with time and sometimes sadly, the longer you're in the same position, the stronger the conviction becomes. You develop a routine, you develop a habit, and you have views where you think, well, this is really what's important. But in the end, the risk with that kind of attitude is that you really reflect what you think is important for you. And if you're talking to your colleagues, then the problems that occupy your mind are the problems that you share amongst yourself, and so you can be forgiven for forgetting, actually, drifting away from the patient's real need. So I find myself, I remember very well, both the first and the second meeting, when penny dropped, I suddenly had this light, I thought, God, I haven't thought about this before. And I remember, for example, Tony saying to me, I was there presenting, dreaming about some IT access, and she said to me, "Oh, you know, really, as a patient, what I would love to be able to do is to go into my files to understand what my doctor has on me, to see the results as and when I want, and to be able to then immediately report to the doctor how I feel and what I would like from them." And, and of course, that has then eventually has developed into the project that we're now applying for funding, the Charisma project, where we're building an enormous sort of IT-based platform where we'll be able to communicate doctor-patient interaction with the environment, looking at integrating pollution and so on. So this could not have happened without that very simple conversation that we had at that meeting.
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that, because that's my feeling as well. In most projects where patients are really engaged, and I think SHARP is showing absolutely the advantages of patient engagement, it sometimes are the small things. But also, one of the challenges for us as patients is we have to, on the one hand, we do see that people take up what we've said, but we need to be sort of vigilant is maybe too powerful, but we have to sort of keep people on track, because we do notice that, and it's understandable that scientists and researchers tend to go back to what they know, and we have to sort of keep them, yes, but this is not what we want to achieve, or this will not get us the result that will be relevant from a patient perspective as well. And it is, on the one hand, it's fun to do, and on the other hand, it requires great communication skills, because you don't want to sort of repeat the same message the same way continuously. But I do feel that we have built mutual trust in SHARP,
Yes.
and that makes the progression of the project so much easier. And I think with the Charisma applications we've done, what we're doing in developing the BIPAR project, where we're looking at what are the worst symptoms for patients, that will then hopefully lead into developing new variables for the registry. I think at the one hand, I feel like we're not moving fast enough, but I think we're moving forward, and we're building very, very firm foundations where we look at safety for patients, safety for everybody involved, but progressing in a way that will really change looking at severe asthma in the future. And I think that's where we want to be.
Now that very much resonates with my perception of the climate. You really are talking about the climate and the spirit within SHARP. What I've found particularly useful is that having the patient in the same room really makes us focus, because. And I'm sure, in another professional setting, you would have experienced this, where people take a position and they say, "This is my view," and then they defend it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have different stakeholders, then each stakeholder group can become entrenched in its position. It says, "This is the position that we take," and then it becomes a standoff, if not a full argument. But like this, we've got to behave, because guess what? If this is a patient-centered initiative, well, all our petty interests take second place. We are here because of the patient. This is our focus, and I've actually reminded that when I felt that discussions were going in a funny way. I said, well, look, fine, that's all very well. These are academic discussions. But let's go back to the essential of our task. We are here because of these people, our patients. And so it has made communication smoother. It has allowed people to kind of free themselves from their little interests and to focus. And of course, because it is a patient-centered clinical research collaboration, then everything focuses on the patient. And so you can even decide, yes, this is interesting, but we will not do it because it's not really patient-centered. So I think it has been a marvelous thing. But in the larger scheme of things, what I was just wondering was, I've never asked you this before, but do you have one or two projects which you think stand out in terms of the patient sort of focused aspect that you would like to discuss? Is there a particular project?
You mean in Sharp?
Yes.
Yes. I think for me, one of the most important projects we're doing is the European validation of the Severe Asthma Questionnaire for the quality of life measuring in severe asthma. Because we've heard from scientists, from researchers, from clinicians that the asthma quality of life questionnaire isn't really fit for purpose. And luckily, the Severe Asthma Questionnaire has already been developed and validated in the UK by the strict FDA standards. And I think because this is such a step forward, because it does not only have an impact on research and on clinician side of stuff, but if we can use the Severe Asthma Questionnaire in the HTA process, we also know that finally projects will be looked at the right quality of life outcomes for patients. And I can't stress how important it is, because quality of life measurement has to be patient relevant. And people forget that because we're used to using the ACQ, we're used to using the EQ5D, 5L. And one of the things I've been advocating, as you know, for quite a while, and I'm quite good at it, is saying it has to be disease-specific, patient-relevant. And we are in the unique position, because we have 28 European countries, that we can validate it according to the FDA requirements in Europe, so that we then have the translations of the questionnaire in all the countries. We're working on that. And we will be able to, by writing the articles and by promoting it at ERS, say, if you have a project, a research, as clinicians, use the SAQ in your practice, in your projects, in what you do. And we can then go to regulators and HTA and say, for severe asthma, this is the quality of life questionnaires that we want you to advocate and use. Yeah.
I think you're so right, because whenever I've sat at these in the company of regulators, I found it very frustrating to hear how entrenched their positions were. What is the effect on FEV1, on lung function? What is the effect on this outcome, that outcome? But almost kind of forgetting what is relevant to the patient. And of course, the SAQ reflects, as you say, it's a holistic questionnaire looking at the well-being, which is, after all, the essence of life. I'm not interested, when you walk into my practice as a patient, you're not interested to hear, what's this treatment? Have you got better treatment that will improve my FEV1? No, I understand, of course, that we do need some functional readouts and so on, but But in the end, I want to know is whether I am making a difference to you, and you want to be able to communicate to me what it is that bothers you. So, and what is important for you. So, what I found, yes, I agree with you. The SAQ project is very important, but it's the other one, the BIPAR project, that strikes a chord with me, because as you know, it is looking to see whether there is alignment, whether there's agreement, or whether there are differences between what I, as a doctor, and you, as a patient, think is the most important. Yeah. Now, the subtlety in this is, what do I think is most important for you? Well, you could argue, is that really important? What I think is most important for you? You know, I can't get into your head. So why don't I ask you what's most important for you? And what I would like to come out, and and of course, you would want to know how much do I differ in my views as to what is important for you. And so what I would love to come out of this is another outcome for clinical trials, for use in the clinical setting, is the single most important problem, worry, concern for the patient, that becomes an outcome. And of course, this means that it would be a different outcome. You know, if you had 100 patients in a study, you could end up having, I don't know, 20, 30 different outcomes. And it does what it does is it personalizes the way that we do clinical research, and the way we do that we provide patient care, because I am then addressing your particular needs, not the average relevant complaint that, you know, a patient population might have, which you, Dominique, might share, but equally you may have something that is, you know, that this may be not an irrelevant question for you, but it may be a, you know, second, third, fourth row question. And I'm completely missing the point by not addressing what is really bugging you as an individual. So it's nice to see that you know, that we'll be able to, I think, shift over the course of the next year completely the way that that we approach these very important outcomes. And I think, you know, even these two projects alone will have made a huge difference and would have justified all the investment that has gone into the SHARP CRC.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on the BIPAR. I like that it has the two objectives to compare what the doctor thinks are the most bothersome symptoms for this specific patients compared to what the patient thinks are the most bothersome symptoms. But it also, what it also does is it gives us an insight in what the most bothersome symptoms are for patients. So my idea, and I think that this is not within a year we will have an overview of what's happening, but I think that could be a fantastic input that then develop it further, sort of in the way that the SAQ was developed together with patients to see, okay, if we're talking about fatigue, what's important about fatigue, and how can we then develop fatigue as an outcome measure that can be used. And that's the future I see. And something else you just said, I also, one of the other things I think that's really, really important that we have developed and are sort of finalizing in SHARP is that we have not quite 28 severe asthma registries in Europe, but we are getting really, really close. And the way we've built it and the way we've built the data, the federated data platform and the federated data access is that it is very, very secure. and the data, the individual patient data and the individual doctor and center data are kept anonymous, but we will be able to access
Yeah.
thousands of data from patients in a secure way and have federated analysis. And I think it didn't go as fast as we
As we
hoped,
would have
but
wanted,
we're
yeah.
almost there. And it is amazing that step by step we have achieved this in a very, very secure and very, very careful way. And I think that's phenomenal.
Yes, yes, it did take a lot of effort and a lot of work. I agree with you, but in the end, it will justify. I think we've been patient, and I think the effort is definitely going to pay off. But look, Dominique, you and I could go on like this forever and ever. But I think I think it's important to maybe just conclude this conversation with a simple message to patients and to colleagues. So, what would be your message to other patients to take away from this conversation, to reflect on, and if they want to, engage further, what would be your message to colleagues?
I feel that having a patient co-chair in CRCs should be done in every CRC, and I think it is an enormous amount of work. It's almost impossible to do. So that's something we would need to solve. But I feel that it has added so much, and I feel that we have also developed a way of engaging the patient advisory group in a different way, that I feel the fundamentals are there to do this and adopt this in other CRCs. And I think it will change CRCs for the better in the whole of the ERS. So I would advise everybody to really consider this. Yes, it's a lot of effort, but the benefits are very big from a patient perspective. But what I see from the clinicians and the people I work with in Sharp, I feel everybody, as you've already said, Ratko, feels that it has added a lot of value.
Yes, I fully agree. The only thing that I would like to add to that is a call to anyone listening. Is if they are a patient, then could they please engage in whichever part of Europe they live in? If there is no well-established patient advisory group of the kind that we have in some of our countries. So in the Netherlands, you have a formidable patient advisory group, and yes, the ELF has got a very nice PAG, but there are countries where there is no patient representation. So I would urge any patient listening to this to engage. But because this may not be part of the culture yet in the various countries, I would like to ask colleagues who may be listening to this discussion between you and me to urge their patients to approach their patients and to have this conversation, the same conversation that you and I have had, because I think it will just make things so much better for them. Knowing what I think and I knowing what you think is the only way to make a real step change. So maybe if we end on that note, it's been lovely to talk to you, as always, Dominique, and no doubt we'll talk again very, very soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Ratko. I completely agree.